So, in my opinion, one of the best phrases for college football and many other avenues of life is you win some and you lose some. And no team better exemplified this yesterday than the Alabama Crimson Tide. Because yesterday, Alabama got in a massive win for the number one edge in the nation, five-star Keon Keeley, who ranks as a top 10 player in all of high school football. However, on the heels of that, former top 50 wide receiver Aaron Anderson announced his intention to test the transfer portal. Today, we need to break this down because Alabama has lost several wide receivers to the transfer portal. We need to talk about what this means and where that room could turn to. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you surprised that Anderson is testing the transfer portal? And secondly, should Alabama fans be concerned? If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And as I said, Anderson is a former top 50 prospect in all of high school football. And there was a part of his high school career where he was ranked as a 5-star. And whenever he committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide, I very specifically remember I counted him as a 5-star because I thought he had 5-star ability. And I still do. And one thing we need to remember, Anderson was an individual that whenever he enrolled early to the Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban was already praising him. Unfortunately, a knee injury derailed all of that for Anderson. And one thing we have to understand specifically about the recruiting class for Alabama last year, they hit that slot wide receiver position and they hit it hard with several guys that are going to pan out. And you don't have to take my word for it. Turn on the film from last season. Those true freshmen at that slot wide receiver, those are guys that are going to pan out. Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Isaiah Bond, all of which have very bright futures in front of them. There's a reason that so many of the transfers from this Alabama wide receiver room are specifically coming out of that slot wide receiver position, because you had older guys on the roster who were now looking at a situation where the younger guys were passing them up, and now they were staring at a depth chart where they knew the likelihood of them playing was diminishing. Now, for Aaron Anderson, one has to think, at least with all of the praise Nick Saban laid on him, that if he got healthy and competed another year, he would be in a position to get major playing time next season. Unfortunately, that doesn't look to be the case. So where is Alabama going to go for here? Well, unfortunately, this is a surprising transfer, and most of the transfers Alabama has experienced thus far, I've said to all of you, I don't think they're super surprising. This is one of the few that I would say surprises me. However, we then have to ask the impact of this, and I have no doubt that if Anderson is healthy, his impact would have been felt this season. But one thing we do have to remember is something I keep talking about. That slot wide receiver position for Alabama is something that staff hit so heavily, and a lot of those guys were contributing. So it's not like we're looking at a situation where that room already didn't have any sort of definite answer, was marred by injury, and now Anderson is transferring. That would be surprising and be very bad for that wide receiver room for the Crimson Tide. Fortunately for Alabama, there's still a lot of talent in that slot wide receiver position. Those still very young guys with very bright futures. That room right there is one I'm not worried about in the wide receiver department. Other areas in the wide receiver department I think could use some more attention, but that slot wide receiver position I think is pretty sewed up. And one thing we have to remember, Cole Adams is coming in. He is a dude. Malik Benson is coming in, and I think you could utilize Malik Benson at any area on that wide receiver field. I just think he's that good. So is this surprising? Yes, it is surprising. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This was a player I was really looking forward to because Nick Saban singled him out when he enrolled early. That means something. Nick Saban doesn't just throw praise on true freshmen, especially true freshmen that enrolled early, but Aaron Anderson and Kendrick Law were two guys Nick Saban singled out and said they have a ton of ability and they're working really hard. Luckily, Kendrick Law remains with the Crimson Tide. He is a guy that I think is going to be a problem moving forward. I think he has got so much ability. Let him get settled in, and he is going to have a ton of production. So, should the Crimson Tide fan base be worried? No, I don't think they should. Look, this is a notable transfer. This is one that you no doubt would have loved to have kept, but there's a reason why we keep seeing so many transfers in that slot wide receiver room, because that's where all the depth was concentrated in that Alabama wide receiver room. If you look, most of the depth, most of the rotation was occurring at that slot wide receiver position, or at least the deepest rotation, in my opinion, was occurring there because of all the names they were throwing in. So it's going to be interesting to see what Alabama does going forward. I think they don't even need to address this, really, with the wide receivers they have in the recruiting class, with the wide receivers they have on campus. I think that wide receiver room is looking pretty good. Someone just needs to emerge and really start taking shape and try and be the guy. Really interested to see who that is. Let me know who y'all think is going to be the guy. I think the obvious answer is Ja'Cory Brooks. I think we can all agree on that. But who's going to step out outside of Ja'Cory Brooks is who I'm interested in. Burton comes back for another year. That should be a net positive, but it's going to be something we have to watch. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about all this. That's it. See you.